I'm going to tell you all a big secret. When you upload a video to the internet about your vagina becoming loose, someone, somewhere out there is going to criticize it. And well, that person is, of course, me. Hello, and welcome back to my second episode of Anti Vegan Trickery. I think this may become a series now, but anyways, many ex-vegans who jump on the anti-vegan bandwagon are highly manipulative and deceitful. A big thing that I have noticed is that many ex-vegans act like they are above or beyond reproach, meaning such is that no criticism can be made. They are perfect, beyond criticism, blameless, above suspicion, and without fault.
Rebecca has no right to invalidate Megan's personal experience.
Actually, I do have a right. I live in America, and we believe in freedom of speech. But I digress. I know it comes off as harsh to criticize someone's health, but let me explain. If you know someone who complains about getting easily winded or has a persistent cough, but you know that they are a smoker, what would you honestly say to them? Let's say that you and your friends went out, had a fun night of drinking heavily, and then wake up the next morning with a huge headache. Are you going to blame that on the French fries you ate or the alcohol? Doy! This is the same thing as blaming veganism on your own stupidity. Many ex-vegans have done some pretty wild things. They have literally done everything under the sun except seek help from a professional. Many of these things range from just being silly to being downright dangerous.
I switched back to cooked vegan food. I tried high carb, low fat, high carb, like juice fasting, water fasting, like all the things.
I was all about sun gazing and that all food is bad, because all food ages you.
Morning, do some enemas. I actually been doing garlic enemas pretty heavily, which I would highly recommend.
Veganism, and around that same time, he was also practicing intermittent fasting and prolonged fasting. So I did a little bit of digging. This clip of him at 1 minute and 15 seconds was back on October 14th of 2016.
I am extremely anti-vegan, in case you can't tell. So 2 years ago, that's when I decided to go completely vegan, which I cut out eggs and started to try to eat healthier. I tried to eat a lot of raw food. I started eating spinach, raspberries, blueberries, smoothies just every single day.
There is a major thing that you should know. In order to make veganism work, you need to eat solid food. If you do prolonged fasts and live off of, just smoothies, you are going to run into trouble. You see, 30 years ago, my mother introduced me to the wonders of solid food. It literally changed my life. I don't think I could ever go back. And speaking of solid food, you need to eat more than a few pieces of fruit per day. If you pay close attention to an ex-vegan's outburst, you will pick up on some truths.
You did the diet wrong. Current vegans will use this old adage that I just did the diet wrong and must have been eating nothing but Oreos and pasta. But the truth is that for the longest time that I was vegan and vegetarian, I ate strictly organic foods and loads of vegetables and fruit, and a lot of which were homegrown. This is exactly the problem and the reason I'm taking the time to make this video. I might have actually been better off had I eaten only Oreos, vegan ice cream, and rice pasta instead of kale and broccoli and carrot juice and spinach. And today, I would like to reveal to you a conspiracy hiding right beneath your nose. A conspiracy just as large and insidious as globe Earth. And that is that fruits and vegetables are not all that they are cracked up to be.
To me, this sounds very controlling and sadly even orthorexic. Only organic food, mainly just your homegrown veggies. Again, this is extremely controlling. And unfortunately, people with orthorexia and other various forms of eating disorders are very attracted to veganism because it allows them to restrict and hide their problem. Then, when their health inevitably fails them, they have the perfect excuse. A very common trait amongst ex-vegans is that they take zero responsibility for their obvious mistakes or self-destructive behavior. This is also a very common trait amongst narcissists. They are hypersensitive to criticism and judgment, but constantly criticize and judge others. If caught in their mistakes and there is no way out of it, the narcissist can't handle the vulnerability it causes. This is where we see something called narcissistic rage. The anger and rage are intended to back you off and cause you to stop accusing them. The purpose is to make you doubt yourself. It's a power and control move to make you afraid to confront them again.
That if you question a narcissist's reality, they will punch back, which is really interesting because one of their primary maneuvers is to question your reality and gaslight you. Now remember, the narcissist has to construct a false self and an egocentric sense of reality to protect their rather broken, confused, and variable sense of self and self-esteem. So, they get really angry if you poke at their grandiose or victimized sense of self, and they get really defensive, rageful, and mean. And all that's the stuff I talk about on the narcissistic rage video if you want to check that out. So let's talk about the shame-rage cycle. Theorists such as Lewis, who write about shame and mental health in general, have very much described this cycle in a much more scientific, well-articulated way. Basically, when a narcissist gets activated, perhaps someone questions them, or does better than them, or asks for a little more from them, or just simply holds the narcissist accountable. The narcissist experiences two things, kind of in order: shame and then rage. The rage is a manifestation of vindictiveness, retaliation, punishment, in essence, wanting their perceived perpetrator to feel as bad as them. So whether it's traditional old-fashioned in-your-face rage or the passive-aggressive, sullen, resentful, brooding, obsessive rage, the reaction is rage. So then over time, as that does turn more and more into rage, the narcissistic person then chronically starts to rage at people who evoke their feelings of shame. Now rage isn't good, and people don't judge rageful people well. It's not a good look. So now the narcissist gets stuck in a cycle of feeling shame, lashing out with rage, feeling more shame as a result, lashing out with more rage, and you can see how that escalates.
Daphne Reloaded is the epitome of narcissistic rage. She has notoriously developed an obsession with vegan gains. This, I feel, is also a combination of jealousy and projection. As a vegan, she was clearly obsessed with clean eating and therefore lashes out on those who are still vegan but still able to enjoy vegan junk food. Her narcissistic rage has gotten so out of control that she even snubs and lashes out at others within the ex-vegan community. Narcissism is very complex. It's certainly a wild ride. One minute, they have a very high opinion of themselves and come off as uncaring.
Was more about the comedy and less about the veganism. I just love being on camera, taking the piss out of people. I love the reactions I get from people. You know, I like the attention that I get from my YouTube channel.
But then the next minute, they will play the victim and blab on about their woes and struggles.
The first time I experienced anxiety was from consuming cannabis. Something fucking snapped recently, okay? And I'm not blaming this on the diet. I'm not sure what it's to do with, okay? No drugs, no alcohol, I'm sober. First time I've ever had full-blown panic attack when I'm sober. Okay, and that was the start of like the worst few weeks of my life, right? So the only way I knew of how to combat these panic attacks, I became dependent on alcohol to combat the anxiety. I couldn't leave the house. I could barely look after my fucking son. I was breaking down every day. So eventually it got so bad, my girlfriend actually had to fly home early as she was on holiday to fucking support me because you're probably worried I was going to fucking top myself, right? I mean, I was dependent on alcohol. I was waking up at 6 a.m. drinking alcohol because I was scared of having a panic attack, right? It's been fucking the worst month of my life, honestly. It's been horrible.
When a lot of people work backwards, one thing they will say, and whether it was a romantic relationship, a friendship, a work collaboration, or even within their own family, they will say, and especially in romantic relationships, that narcissistic person, that toxic person, early in the game would tell them really, really, really difficult stories about their past. I mean, really difficult stories, talking about how things didn't quite go right for them. What you've got to then link it to is, how are they treating you? People would often say that because that narcissistic toxic person was sharing all of these really, really sad stories from their past, that they would feel that they had no right to think negatively of that narcissist because they had such a tough life. In other words, they're using that narcissist's difficult, traumatic, painful history to write excuses for their behavior now. Hurt you. Maybe my anger frightened you. Maybe my anger was disproportionate to you. None of that. Instead, they will simply say, you need to excuse my anger because I've been through so much. And they really won't care about your feelings. That lack of empathy that gets blinded at those times is what makes these relationships so confusing. You're doing your part. You're understanding their lives in a larger context, that maybe bad things did happen to them, and you want to be mindful of that, and you watch yourself. But they don't watch themselves. And my guess is, for many of you, you had your own difficult backstories, but that perhaps you've done the work to manage it, or you still manage to hold that space of empathy despite the difficult things that have happened to you. But again, back to the idea of manipulation. Because a narcissist will often use manipulation to draw someone close, and they recognize that telling you all these sad, sad stories about them, and maybe not even all of them are true, but they'll tell you these sad stories, and they'll even tell you sad stories about the present. You won't believe it. I had this great idea and it was stolen. I started this business and my business partner walked away with it. Like, they really seem like a treasure trove of bad luck. When they start seeing it's working, that it's keeping you on the hook, then they recognize that, this is working. My sort of sad sack story here is drawing this person in and keeping them close. And now they feel like not only do they need to rescue me, they're using it as they're letting me off the hook. So you can see then that they've weaponized their history.
Is it just me, or did Jacko Wacko completely lie and manipulate us all into feeling bad for him? Was this his crutch and excuse to originally avoid any criticism? Time and time again, we see irresponsible, self-destructive ex-vegans turn and become nasty anti-vegans. Instead of owning up to their mistakes, they lash out and play the victim card, essentially acting above reproach. Don't be fooled by their tricks and manipulation tactics. Perhaps now you have a better understanding of why ex-vegans act the way they do. Don't let them off the hook, and don't let them bully you. Take care, and I'll catch you later in the next video. Bye.